On today's show, Klay Thompson's Mavs legacy hinges on Jason Kidd. What decisions does he have to make, and how is he going to handle it? Talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Amazing.
Your team every day.
Still can't eat milk.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. With the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform. Take us with you. Leave a 5-star review. Like the video on YouTube and comment anything below. Let me know what's an under-the-radar storyline you're interested in for the Dallas Mavericks this season. Because joining me today from Fansided, the Smoking Cuban, from the legacy of Isaac Harris, basically. No, Weber, what you got for me?
Yeah, what's up, Nick? Thanks for having me on. Tonight, I got done with some basketball runs. Nick was listed as out with knee soreness. Slightly back was hurting him from carrying us in the Mavs 3-on-3 tournament. And then Tim, I think his knee was bothering him too. But yeah, I held it down for the Mavs content people at the runs down there. So it was cool.
Yeah, the runs that Slightly and I have played in are they've been like the Mavs in December last year, right? Where it's just like everybody's out because of injury. Like, yeah, I was out. Slightly's out with his back. So funny. Yeah, Noah. Writes for the Smoking Cuban. What's your official title, the Smoking Cuban?
So I'm the site expert over there. It's pretty much the editor-in-chief.
Which is what Isaac Harris was years ago when we first started doing this. So you're the grand site editor of Isaac Harris, like the grandson editor.
Let's go.
That's funny. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about some under the radar storylines that we see on Fansided. If you've ever followed any of this Fansided stuff, you know that they're writing constantly. Like, the only people putting out more content than me are probably the Fansided Smoking Cuban type sites and things like that. And so we're talking about under the radar storylines, other things that we're looking at across the Mavericks. But I wanted to start here because you wrote a piece recently that caught my eye. The title was Klay Thompson's Mavericks legacy now hinges on Jason Kidd. Give me just why Jason Kidd has control over this now. Why is it not in Klay Thompson's camp? Why does Jason Kidd have any kind of why does he have any kind of control or say in this? Because I think you're right in a sense that Jason Kidd has a big job in front of him this season. That he now has not just Luka and Kyrie, but also this Klay Thompson entity, 4-time champion, coming in, expected to be a starter. And what if that's not the best option for the Mavericks? How is he going to handle that going forward? What if Klay Thompson plays the way he did last year and it's frustrating, and Klay gets frustrated and messing with team chemistry because he's frustrated with himself and all that? There's a lot of different factors, but why to you is Jason Kidd the one that's kind of in control of Klay Thompson's legacy for the Mavs?
Yeah, obviously Klay, he's going to control his own legacy too, considering that, as you said, Hall of Famer, one of the best shooters ever. But when I wrote that piece and I heard what Jason Kidd had to say about what his plans for what he has for Klay, I'm like, okay, this lies on Kidd. Jason Kidd is not overthinking this. When he asked, what's Klay's role going to be? He said, it's easy. He's Klay Thompson. He said he just has to be Klay Thompson. So when you're looking at what his role is going to be on this team, Jason Kidd, he doesn't need to get too cute with this whole Klay Thompson thing. It's going to be something where Klay is going to be getting the most open looks that he's ever gotten. All these D. Jones corner threes and Josh Green, they're going to be Klay Thompson looks now. Like, Luka is one of the greatest passers to ever play the game. And just when you look at Klay, just Jason Kidd, I think it's going to be a super easy transition for Klay, incorporating him into this offense. But as you said too, the off the court stuff is just as big. And that's something that Kidd has really excelled in. He's excelled in keeping his superstars happy. Both Luka and Kyrie really love him. Last year, when a lot of people were against Jason Kidd, maybe people didn't agree with his rotational decisions, some of the in-game stuff, going small. But at the end of the day, his superstars love him. You can't argue with that.
Yeah,
and Klay coming in, you got to manage the locker room. And I think that's something that isn't super easy, but Kidd's done a great job of that. And as you said, Klay had some frustration in Golden State last year. If that same thing happens again, a lot of pressure is going to be on Kidd. You got to keep this guy happy, but you also got to get this team to play the best they can.
we've seen Kid make decisions, like big decisions like this before. We've seen him, start. We've seen him, start with JaVale McGee at the start of a season and him being named the starter and signed to the Mavericks as a starter. And then 8 games into the season, he realizes, and it was probably quicker than that, he realized, man, this is not working at all, and made that decision. We've seen him make the decision last year to, start Derek Lively, and then Derek Lively goes out for injury. They bring in Daniel Gafford, and then when Lively comes back from injury, he did the thing that a lot of NFL people would say: you shouldn't be able to lose your job to injury, right? The famous Tony Romo, Dak Prescott thing that we talked about forever ago. But then he came in and he started Daniel Gafford, and Lively played more than Gafford in the playoffs and all that, but Gafford still started all the games, and Kid made that decision. He, made decisions to change Luka's rotation a little bit here and there, but he has not made a decision with this level of personality yet, because Luka and Kyrie have pretty much been guaranteed their spots, guaranteed their minutes. There's not been this level of personality and former star, whatever you want to call Klay Thompson at this point. And I'm just real curious that if everything goes right, the way that it kind of did last year with pretty much all the players, everybody falls in line, everything kind of works out. They make moves at the right time, and Kid had to make a couple decisions, but he benched a rookie. It's not, that would really change a lot. But if things start to go wrong, how will he make those decisions? But I do think you're right that he makes things easier for Klay Thompson. So how can Jason Kidd make things easier for Klay Thompson to ease that transition in a little bit more?
Yeah, it's just going to be easy. He's a player's coach, and it's going to be, you can make the argument that Steve Kerr is too, but everyone saw what happened at the Olympics. So, but when you're looking
he's not a Tatum's player's coach.
Yeah, no, not at all. Celtics fans are not a big fan of Steve Kerr. But when you're looking at what Klay Thompson's going to be asked to do, I think that they're going to find different ways. I think they're going to be using off-ball screening a little bit more. You have to, because that's Klay Thompson's specialty. He's going to be, he loves just coming off of the little pin downs, or he'll curl off the big man and shoot a 3 from the top of the key. And I just think Kid makes it easier for Klay, just because there's no bells and whistles. He's not having to be the second guy like he was in Golden State. He's like, Klay knows his role coming in. Klay, you're going to start at the 3, and you're going to get plenty of open looks from downtown. He can put the ball on the deck a little bit, but I don't think that's something that he's going to have to do. You have 2 of the best creators. And you have Luka and Kyrie. He was just a great third piece for them to go get. And I think Kid's just like Klay's job coming to Dallas is going to be easy. I don't think that Kid's job is necessarily going to be super hard when it comes to Klay, and managing him on the court. Off the court could turn into a different issue, but I think that Dallas is in a great spot when it comes to what Kid's going to do with Klay.
Yeah, to make it easier for Klay, I think it's interesting. Like, Kid has been good at one thing. It's finding a role for players and just making that role exactly what they're good at, right? And maybe this is the work of Kid and Nico Harrison finally coming together and getting players that each other agrees that are good, right? We had the thing last year where Jason Kidd really wanted JaVale McGee, and then Nico Harrison really wanted Christian Wood, and it was like just 2 sides of it just didn't go together. It didn't work out. Jason Kidd didn't seem like he really wanted to embrace Christian Wood. JaVale McGee didn't really seem like he worked out and wasn't ready for that role. But now it seems like the front office and the coaching staff are together on some of these, because the roster just makes so much more sense. You just look at the depth chart and you just go, man, across the board, it really just makes a lot more sense. And having Klay Thompson there and making his role, like you said, just come off of off-ball screens, catch some catch and shoot 3s, maybe attack every once in a while, do a couple of things like that. And I think that just Kid putting him in that position to succeed, I think is going to be so great for him. It's so great to set him up that way. We just have to know if Klay is okay with that, right? If Klay is going to be okay with the role that Kid sets up for him, but you'd hope that he would be. That Kyrie kind of recruited him and talked to him, and I'm sure that there was talk about how he's going to play and all that. We heard about the meeting with Nico Harrison and Michael Finley where Klay was bringing up specific instances in the finals where he feels like he could have helped. Like this does seem like a collaborative whole process, and so I think it's interesting. I do think that Jason Kidd has something to say about Klay's legacy. Klay obviously controls his own destiny, like you said, but it's interesting to see the role that Kidd is going to have. Coming up, though, let's talk about some of our under-the-radar storylines. We got a couple that I'm interested in. I'm going to start with Kyrie Irving. I think his leadership is something that's really interesting for the Mavericks this season, and it came up in a big way recently. We'll talk about that and more coming up.
You don't believe you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. Klay Thompson knows something about a formula for winning championships, and you can know it too. With eBay Motors, they have everything you need to maintain your vehicles. Level it up to peak performance with superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you want at the prices you need, it's the easiest way to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only, available to U.S. customers.
My first shot, my first make.
Thanks everybody for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. Appreciate you and every one of you for checking out the show. Make your second listen today, Locked On NBA. There's no off season for us. There just really isn't. I'll be on the show on Thursday, so go check out that episode. I was also on Monday. Go listen to Locked On NBA. Watch it wherever you're listening, watching this show. Locked On NBA is there for you every day. I'm here with Noah Weber from Smoking Cuban. No, we're talking about some under the radar storylines. I'm going to start with Kyrie because there's recently some OTAs, like how they say in football, the optional training, the optional training things. The Mavs got together, and Mark Stein reported about this recently, that pretty much everybody except for Luka and Dwight Powell got together in LA because Luka and Dwight Powell were overseas. And they got together, they did some workouts, they had some runs, they, hung out on a boat. We saw the clip of Klay Thompson jumping off the yacht in there, and I posted that on our YouTube shorts and all that. So go check out that video. But I think Kyrie Irving and Stein reported this, that Kyrie Irving kind of put that together, that he was one of the ones that brought everybody together. And I think that means two things for this team. And one of them is they're not taking the season lightly. They want to come together. They want to build that chemistry early with a bunch of new pieces. And I think another one is this team has a lot of great chemistry already, that they are building that. They want to hang out together. They want to, take this season seriously. How are you seeing Kyrie's leadership step up last year and then going into this next year?
Oh man, that just Kyrie's leadership, just from being someone who's at most of the pressers and getting to see them in practice, getting to see Luka and Kyrie specifically grow as not just teammates, but they genuinely like each other. Like they're competing hard in practice, shooting competition, shooting free throws together, laughing, joking around. Kyrie's leadership has just been huge, and it goes back to that Spades tournament that they had. I think it was when they were in Thanksgiving. They were in Los Angeles. I believe it was LA. They were playing the Clippers or something like that. And the players and their families came together at Kyrie's home in LA to play spades. And that's just that shows who Kyrie was. That's when the team, it wasn't the same team that was now before the trades and all that, but just Kyrie, everyone looks to him. If you like Jaden Hardy, he'll always harp on how big Kyrie has been for me. All these guys they really look up to Kyrie because this team is young now, and a lot of these guys, when they were in high school, they're watching Kyrie. It's Kyrie Irving. It's still crazy to think Kyrie Irving is a Maverick. It's unbelievable. One of the most skilled players ever. But yeah, his leadership has just been huge, and him putting together this whole event this summer, he's putting that role of being the leader on his back. Everyone knows that's the leader of the team, and it shows. It's awesome that they're already building this chemistry now. The training camps not for another month, and they're already all hanging out together. Klay, Quentin Grimes, I guess Naji was there too. All just getting to really get to know each other. That's great.
Stein said everybody but Luka and Dwight Powell were there, which is kind of amazing to get all those guys together in one spot and together. I mean, I even saw Markieff Morris was there. He's not even on the roster. He was there posting videos of Lively and all that. When did you become a Mavs fan, by the way? You talk about it's amazing that Klay is on the Mavs, but when did you start following the Mavs or covering the Mavs or become a fan?
Yeah, so I started covering the Mavs at the end of the cursed 22-23 season. I started covering them then, but I've been watching them my whole life.
You just saw that happen. You're like, they just missed the playoffs, but you know what they need? They need someone to get down to the bottom of this. you got it. What I want to do? I want to write multiple times a day about this team. That's what
Hey, exactly.
When I started, it was the the first year Harrison Barnes joined the Mavericks. So that's when I jumped in. That was kind of a low point too. That was not a great time to start, but it kind of is, because
similar boats there.
But it kind of is a good time because practices are less busy. There's less demand on players and things like that. You get a little more access, or you get there's just not as much competition and all that. With Kyrie's leadership, I'm curious about how that develops throughout the season. That's something that I'm definitely watching. And I'm watching to see how he steps forward into into more of that. How does he do more? How does he, do some of these OTAs or that Spades tournament that you talked about? How does he do a couple more of those things this season? How does that come to fruition during the season? Because now he's had a full season with the Dallas Mavericks, and now an off season, and not an off season where he was a free agent like last year. And so I think that allows him to get some more ownership. He's probably really proud of this Mavericks team now. They just went to the finals. He probably feels really connected to these guys. And so I'm curious to see how his leadership takes a step forward. I'm also curious to see with Kyrie how he handles the offense and how he handles his role on the court now that he'll probably have a little less pressure on him. Last year, it was if Kyrie doesn't go off for 20 in a quarter, you probably don't win the game. But now with Klay Thompson, probably Spencer Dinwiddie doing some ball handling, the pressure on him should be less, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It'll definitely be less. I mean, he's with his Luka minutes, but then a lot of times when he's with the bench unit as well, someone like Jaden Hardy, or he'll run with Dinwiddie, or even Grimes. We'll talk about him later, but I'm pretty high on Grimes. I mean, if you watch any of his film this summer, you have to take workout videos lightly, as everyone knows, but his ability to handle is a lot better than people realize. And his focus this summer, what he told us at that introductory press conference, he said, I want to be a better playmaker this summer. So I think that when he's sharing the floor with different players like that, because he has the ability to play on or off the ball, it's definitely going to help remove pressure on him.
Stein also reported that Kyrie still isn't able to fully participate in all the workouts and stuff because of the hand injury. Kyrie has said that is kind of a blessing in disguise for him to actually take some time off. So we'll be monitoring that, but he should be ready for training camp. Media day is about in a month from right now. It's September 30th. And so we'll be following that. I also think Kyrie's leadership showed up in a huge way this summer with recruiting Klay Thompson. That's been a big story that I think Kyrie should just continue to get credit for over and over and over again, because he was the one that recruited him, called him up, pitched him on the Mavericks. And if Kyrie, think about who Kyrie was known as before he came to the Mavericks. I've said it many times on the show. He was considered a flight risk. He was floating from one place to another. Didn't seem like he was satisfied or happy anywhere. He comes to Dallas and he immediately says, I wish I was drafted by them. Right. And so he's happy about that. Then now he's recruiting players to join the Mavericks. Now he's doing OTAs with the Mavericks. We're doing these optional workouts in LA that the Mavs had no part of. The players put those together by themselves, and Kyrie was a big part of that. His leadership, I think, is going to be a big thing for the Mavericks, not only on the court but off the court, bringing in players and all that. It means a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Him being able to recruit Klay, players talk like that. Having Kyrie say that is so much bigger than someone else from whatever the front office or the coaching staff who had a relationship with Klay really pushing for it. These players, they can tell you exactly what's going on. They can tell you how great because just like Klay, Kyrie's played in other places. Klay's only played in one place. So this is a huge, huge change for him. But Kyrie just being able to detail what it was like going from a different organization to the Mavericks. I think the front office just really, really embraces their players. And ever since Nico has taken over, it's felt like it feels like a different organization. It's not, but it feels a whole lot different. And I think the way that they're turning into a hotter free agency destination. If this was 4 or 5 years ago, I don't think that Klay Thompson, he might consider the Mavericks for leverage, like some people speculated that he was doing. But I mean, he wouldn't be someone that would be coming to Dallas. And now they're a hot free agency destination. People are wanting to play here. Klay chose the Mavericks over the Lakers, and so did Spencer Dinwiddie. I mean, that's a veteran minimum signing, but still,
You mentioned the people that thought it was leverage. I raised my hand because that was me. I really thought Klay was using the Mavs as leverage. It just seemed like that's where the Warriors story was going, that he was just wanted more money from them and that eventually they would cave, and he's too important to them all time with their, how important he is to that franchise and their championships and the best run of in franchise history. How could they just bail on him with over a money disagreement? And it ended up not being the case. And the thing that I didn't consider when I was thinking about Klay Thompson using the Mavs as leverage is, one, I had the PTSD of the many times the Mavs had the planned powder and then like free agents would use that money and those offers as leverage to get money somewhere else. And then I also didn't consider Kyrie pitching him and having this leadership and recruiting players and guys really being proud of being part of the Mavericks, saying, you got to be part of this, right? Like you said, players talk. Come be part of this. Come join us and all this. We're doing something special. And that part of it I really underestimated. And so I'm happy to be wrong about that. And Kyrie Irving now brought in Klay Thompson, and we're about to see how that's going to work this season. I'm excited to see it. The other player I'm excited to see, you've mentioned a couple times. I'm glad that you're high on Quentin Grimes because I'm very high on Quentin Grimes too. Let's talk about him. There's a couple under the radar storylines with him. And one reason I think he could be really good for the Mavs. We'll talk about that and more coming up.
You don't believe you shouldn't be here.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
All right, Noah. We're here talking about some under the radar storylines. Kyrie Irving's leadership is definitely one that goes a little under the radar, and I think we need to give him a little more credit for it. The other one, I think, is Quentin Grimes. We're talking a lot about Klay Thompson this summer, as we should. He's a big name. People that don't follow basketball will know, hey, Klay Thompson, he was, with Steph Curry and Draymond and all that. They know him. Naji Marshall's kind of the other one we'll talk about because he's going to be the one-to-one replacement for Derrick Jones Jr., and that's kind of a big storyline. Quentin Grimes, though, it's kind of flying under the radar a little bit. Why do you think what are you interested to see with Quentin Grimes this season? You talked about his playmaking, what he wants to do to take a step forward, but what are you seeing with his role with the Mavericks, or what do you see with Quentin Grimes that you're interested in?
Yeah, so as you said before, it flew under the radar even right after it happened. A lot of fans were thinking it was a salary dump. They were saying that it was just to get off of Tim's contract. They had to attach 3 seconds to get it done, but Quentin Grimes is good. Like, yes, he battled his knee injury in Detroit, and it wasn't the best season he had with the Knicks. But if you look at his game, in my opinion, he's an upgrade from Josh Green. That's kind of the level where I'm at right now. I think that he's better defensively, and the shooting numbers aren't going to be the same because Quentin Grimes, he takes more shots off the dribble than Josh Green does. Like, if you watch Quentin Grimes' game, a lot of people are kind of comparing him to Josh Green, but they're really different. While Josh Green, outside of that Utah game that he had where he had almost 30 points and he was hitting crazy shots off the dribble, outside of that, his game is kind of get a corner three off of a Luka feed. Sometimes he'd get to the rim. He was great in transition. And obviously the Energizer Bunny. But when you're looking at Grimes, he's someone you can give him the rock. Okay, Gafford, go off a screen from Gafford, get downhill, maybe pull up for a mid-range jumper or pull up for a three. Their games are different. And I think Grimes' ability to handle the ball is going to be a huge help off the bench.
I'm with you. One of the things I was preaching right after all these moves happened is, all right, you got to look at the moves like this. Klay Thompson is an upgrade on Tim Hardaway Jr. You got to look at Naji Marshall could be and probably is an upgrade over Derrick Jones Jr. And Quentin Grimes, the upgrade over Josh Green. And then Spencer Dinwiddie was like the extra, the upgrade over the guys on the roster already, Dante Exum or Jaden Hardy or whoever. And with Grimes, yeah, he's like the player that we all hoped that Josh Green would become, right? This 3-and-D can maybe do a little bit more. It's going to be a lockdown defender on the perimeter. Slightly and I did that grid the other day, and best perimeter defender, we came up with Quentin Grimes because we think that he is the guy that can come in and be the best perimeter defender. Now, PJ has a case, Naji Marshall has a case, but Grimes we've seen be a really good defender on that Knicks team. To start, to guard the best player on the other team. We've seen him do that. The 3-point shot, like you said, he's going to take different types of shots than Josh Green, but he shot pretty well, like 37% for his career from 3. And the other thing that I'm interested in with him, this is real sneaky. There's not many players on the Mavericks right now that are in a contract year. And this is something that some people have tried to debunk and say, oh, it doesn't matter. But then every once in a while you get like, oh my gosh, this guy in a contract year is absolutely insane. I feel like the Julius Randle, every time he's in a contract year, goes nuts and makes all NBA or something like that. But outside of Grimes, You've got like Dante Exum is kind of in a contract year. Dinwiddie's a minimum, so he's technically in a contract year. And then that's kind of it. And so Quentin Grimes is going to be a restricted free agent at the end of this year, and he's got a lot to prove to the Mavericks and a lot to prove to himself and to the rest of the NBA because he was flying high and as a starter for the Knicks and all that, a playoff team, 50-win team, and then he goes to Detroit and is just in complete irrelevance, misses a ton of games, only plays a couple games for them, and now is in a contract year. And so I'm interested to see how he responds to that, and hopefully he gets enough minutes to prove something.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think he will, just because if you can guard and you're not abysmal on offense, you're going to play on Jason Kidd's team. Like you will play. Like just the way he guards too, he's a menace. You can put him on Gilgeous-Alexander or someone like that, and he's going to pick him up full court. He's a lot better defensively than people give him credit for. I think Mavs fans are going to grow to love Grimes pretty quickly.
Yeah, him, Naji Marshall, I think just slam dunks as far as role players. If Mavs fans fall in love with role players, and they always do. It's like Dorian Finney-Smith, still one of the most revered players because he was just this great role player in his role. You think about some of the guys from the championship, Deshaun Stevenson, Sean Marion, just amazing in their roles. Tyson Chandler, probably the best example of that, just amazing in their role, and Mavs fans fall in love with them. These two guys, I think, are definitely guys that are going to be easy to fall in love with. With Quentin Grimes, what role do you see him playing? You said he's definitely going to get minutes. If he defends, he's going to get minutes. I think he kind of has to, because if you don't, then where are you getting the perimeter defense from? But how do you see him? How do you see him playing? Could you see him break into that starting, closing role, anything like that?
So it's hard to say just with the starting closing role, because we got to see how Klay is defensively before anything, because with having Luka and Kyrie on the floor, you already have PJ, and then you'll have Lively, who are two great defenders. But that wing spot is really important, because when you're playing against Anthony Edwards, or if you're playing against Steph Curry, like Klay, as he said at the presser, he doesn't want to chase people around anymore. That's
I used to do that.
Quentin Grimes and Naji's job. Yeah, as he said, it's going to be a different Klay Thompson, but I could see him getting a Josh Green type of role. Right now I'm looking at Josh Green on Basketball Reference, kind of looking at his minutes, 26 minutes a game. I could see Grimes getting it. I think it would be a little bit less than that. You're throwing in Klay Thompson now and Naji, and also Josh Green started a ton of games last year. So yeah. I don't know if Quentin Grimes is going to be someone who breaks into that starting unit just yet. If someone were to do it, I think it would be Naji Marshall before Grimes, but I could definitely see him getting spot minutes as a starter, because Luka and Kyrie, they'll miss time, and that's when he's going to ball out.
Yeah, I mean, you think about this time last year, we saw Josh Green and Grant Williams as the two starters in those wing spots. Those are the two that we penciled in, and I thought for sure, okay, these are going to be the two dirty work wings. I didn't even consider Derek Jones Jr. as a starter, because he didn't play that much for the Bulls. I thought, okay, this is a nice flyer on this guy, and then he just morphed into this player that became so important for the Mavericks, especially in the playoffs. But yeah, it's wild to think about that and to think about now and how much things can change over the course of 82 games. And yes, there was some trades, but the people that we have penciled in now may not necessarily be the people that are starting in those roles, playing in those roles by the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Naji is going to end up playing a ton more than he did last season. I'm pretty sure he played less than 20 minutes a game in New Orleans. They're going to need Naji. They're going to need Naji because, I mean, he's big, he's strong, and he is an absolute dog on that end. Like his foot speed, he can keep up with guys like Gilgeous-Alexander. If they're playing the Timberwolves, he's going to guard Ant. Like he's elite on that end. He's going to be a lot of fun watching for Dallas.
We did that grid thing yesterday, the player grid, where you have a bunch of different, roles, and you say who's the best players, all that. One of them was we changed one. We changed one that we didn't like, and we decided to pick who's the biggest dog on the team. And I decided Naji Marshall. I was definitive with that. Okay. I said we're not picking anyone else but him. And I got a lot of pushback on social with it should be PJ, it should be Daniel Gafford. Who would you pick as the biggest dog on the Mavericks? Because you've obviously watched some Naji now.
Yeah, undoubtedly Naji Marshall. It's hard to say because he hasn't played a game yet, but he's fearless. Like in that fight he had with Jimmy Butler, he grabbed him by the neck. Like he's got a little bit of psycho in him. Like you got with your dirty work wings, you got to have a little bit of psycho in him, because if things go to the wall, if just like we saw last year when Jalen Duren kind of shoved Gafford under the goal, PJ stood on business right then. I think if Naji Marshall was right there and he watched that happen too, who knows? Yeah, he's an absolute dog. He's going to stand up for his teammates, and he embraces that. That's the role that the Pelicans gave him. He just came in and he ran with that. And I think that's going to be the similar thing that he's going to do too. He's going to have to guard really hard, and then just having him, PJ, Gafford. I think Lively's got some dog in him too. If you saw in the Thunder series and in that Timberwolves series too, D-Liv's got some dog in him too.
It's hard to say you're the biggest dog though when I just keep remembering that play where he was running away from Chet, trying to chase him to foul him like this.
Yeah.
Kind of a little negative on his dogism.
Yeah, takes a little bit away from the dog status, but then when Kyrie told him to lock in, he cut it out.
Oh, he did.
He sucked his free throws.
I'm excited for the Naji PJ lineup, and I'm curious if they come up with a nickname because Dorian Finney-Smith had the all-time one.
You know, Bang Bros. Trying to keep it. The Bang Bros.
Yes,
I'll never forget that day. And then I'll never forget on media day, Isaac and I sat there and be like, so are you sticking with the Bang Bros nickname? He's like, yep, I said it. I gotta stick with it now. And and then Isaac pretended like he didn't know what it was because Isaac's a pastor. So oh man. Noah Weber, where can people read you? Where can they follow you? All that.
Yeah, so I write daily on thesmokingcuban.com. It's just thesmokingcuban.com. If you click on there, more than likely you're going to see my name. We're publishing at least 4 articles almost every day. Even during the off season, we're publishing over 100 articles a month. So if you want to read my work, you can go on and head on over there. And then I'm on Twitter at NoahWeber00, and there's one B in Weber.
With the daily Mavs content, it's you and me, and then it's DLLS is they're just starting into this game, right? They just started. Our friends over there, they don't know what they're getting themselves into, right? With the grind of the season and the off season.
No. Yeah, it's gonna be a long year because once you get to August, boy, Jaren Jackson Jr. hyped up Luka. Like what? Like that would never be a story in April or February, but now you're looking for anything. You're searching all the podcasts, seeing who's talking about Luka, who's talking about Klay, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love it.
There you go. Yeah, all the love to our friends at DLLS and all that. But yeah, we were born into it. We were born into this daily Mavs content grind right here. There you go. Thanks, Noah, for hanging out with us. And tomorrow we'll have Slightly Biased and I. We're talking about the players that we're most interested in this season. So come back and check out that. Guys, thanks for listening to Locked on Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.